Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome, everyone. As everyone knows, or let's say as most people believe, including myself, PSA has gotten stricter over the years, and I thought it'd be interesting to experiment with this a little bit. And so I went and took a look at some of my PC cards. My PC is mainly Hall of Fame rookie cards in high grade. And so I went and took, I think, about 12 cards, all from the 1980s that are mostly PSA 10s, a few PSA 9s. Thought we would look at them closely here and see which if the grades sort of hold up to today's standards. So sort of a 2-for-1 in this video. I get to showcase some of my PC cards, but we also get to do this little study looking at PSA's grading standards and whether it's changed over the years, because a lot of these were graded many, many years ago. All right, first card we're going to look at is 1989 Topps Traded Tiffany, Ken Griffey Jr. rookie. It's a PSA 10, and this is my Griffey card in my PC. I like the Tiffany's even more than the upper deck, but this card, I think on the front here looks like it holds up. Centering is great left to right. I don't see any issues with the surface of the corners or the edges. Top bottom centering maybe the tiniest bit off, but I think within the range. Back is super clean and centered really well, and the back border being black often leads to chipping, but this one really doesn't have any. So this card I think holds up. I think if this was sent in today, it would probably get a 10. Obviously, it might get a 9, but I think it would be a solid 10 contender. Next card, 1983 Topps Wade Boggs rookie, PSA 10, and immediately I can see that this card's off-centered left to right. You can see the left border is significant. I mean, it's wider than the right border, clearly. I can see that with the naked eye. Is it 60-40? By today's standards, it has to be 55-45, so this card would not grade a 10 today if it were sent in. I think it would probably, well, let's take a look at the back in a sec. But yeah, front otherwise looks great other than the centering. The back is really clean, and yeah, back's also the tiniest bit off-centered left to right. But back centering doesn't really play much of a role these days. But I think this card would get a 9 today, and I don't think it would have any chance at a 10. So it would probably get a 9. If anything else, it would be an 8, but we'll say 9. Next, 1983 Topps Ryan Sandberg rookie, PSA 10. And this card, centering left to right, is great. Bottom border, maybe a little wide on the top border. No, I think it's probably 50-50, or pretty close to it in both directions. Surface edges, corners all look great. Front of this is basically perfect. I think the front holds up. Back is the tiniest bit off-centered left to right as you look at the card here. Left border being a tiniest bit wider than the right, but I don't think that would bump it down. I think this card, again, it might not grade a 10 like it could get a 9, but I think it's a credible 10 by today's standards in the as is. Next card, Tony Gwynn rookie, 1983 Topps Tony Gwynn. Got all three of the big rookies from 83. And this card, again, first glance, the centering looks a little bit off. I think the right border is wider than the left border. And is it within the 55-45? According to the website now, it has to be within 55-45. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think this would not get a 10 today because of the centering left to right. I think it would, well, based on the front here, I think it would get a 9. Everything else looks basically perfect, but I think the centering is off enough so that it would not gem by today's standards. Back is really clean. Again, the border a little off-centered left to right as you look at the card. Left border is clearly wider than the right border. So this card I don't think would get a 10. I think it would probably get a 9, and if, again, not a 9, it would be an 8. It would have basically no chance at a 10 today. Next up, 1982 Topps, my boy Cal Ripken rookie. It's a PSA 10, and card looks pretty clean. Looks really clean. I think this card's, I mean, looking over here, the centering looks great. I can't tell if the right border is maybe a little bit wider than the left as you look at it, but I think it's close enough. I think it's within 55-45, and I think everything else looks great. Back looks very clean. These dark green backs can easily be chipped, but no chipping along the corners and edges. So this card, I think, as a 10 holds up today. I think this would, again, not necessarily would definitely get a 10 if sent in today. I think it would probably get a 10 and it could get a 9, but I think it's a worthy, I think the 10 is a proper grade for the card as of today's standards. 1980 Topps Ricky Henderson. Don't have a 10 in this. Wish I did. That's a 6-figure card. I'd probably rather have the cash than the Henderson 10, but I do have a 9 here. Ricky Henderson PSA 9. The centering is great on this card. I don't think there's any centering issues in either direction. Corners and edges super sharp. It does have 2 tiny little print dots. You can see one right there on the left of A's and then one just to the right of of his waist. So 2 tiny print dots would definitely knock it down. No chance at a 10. The back centering is off in both directions, but again, back centering often not really, playing a major part. I think this card is probably a 9, if not a 9 and 8. It's probably an 8 or a 9 today. I think it's worthy of the 9 grade, although might be an 8 if you graded it today. On to football. 1989 score, Barry Sanders, PSA 10, and immediately it's off-centered. Right border is wider than the left border, so that immediately would knock it out of 10 contention today. Everything else looks great. Very clean card. It's a really cool card. One of my favorite players growing up, Barry Sanders. He was my favorite player growing up, Barry Sanders. Back super clean, and the back's actually centered well, but the front was off-centered enough such that this would definitely not get a 10 today. Probably a 9 because it's, we'll call it 60-40 centering, and everything else is great or is perfect. So probably a 9 on the Barry Sanders if you were to send it in today. Jerry Rice rookie, greatest wide receiver in history. This is a PSA 9, 1986 tops. Really condition sensitive set with the dark green borders. Often have chipping at the corners and edges. This one does not. Really sharp corners and edges, and the centering looks great left to right. You can see the card's actually not secure within the case. That drives me nuts. Might have to get this one reholdered. Top bottom centering, maybe the tiniest bit off, but everything else looks great. Centering on the back is a little bit off. Everything else very, very clean. Yeah, I think this card's certainly worthy of the mint 9 grade the mint 9 grade holder that it's in right now. And as I mentioned, many of these cards were graded years ago, some like 5+ years ago. Here's 1982 Topps Ronnie Lott rookie, one of the greatest safeties in history. It's a 10 from PSA. Left-right centering looks 50-50. Top-bottom centering is a little hard to read because the bottom doesn't have sort of like an obvious border, but looks good. The top border looks basically as wide as the left or the right border, so that's a good sign. Surface, everything looks great. Back super clean and no issues. Centering even looks great on the back, so I think this is a very worthy 10. I think if you sent it in today, it would have a very good shot at a 10, even by today's standards. Really no issues on the Ronnie Lott. Joe Montana rookie, 1981 Topps. It's a PSA 9. Yeah, another one I would love to have in a 10. It's a $50,000 card, but got the 9 here. Centered great in both directions. Maybe the top border is a little wider than the bottom border. I think left to right is 50-50. Top border maybe a little bit wider than the bottom, but very, very minor. And I don't see anything wrong with the surface. All of these are very, very clean. I've always been a surface guy more than a centering guy. I want to see no issues on the surfaces of my card, more so than I need 50-50 centering. But most people care more about the centering. Centering is a little bit off on the back here, top to bottom. And yeah, you can see the card isn't secure in the holder, just like the Jerry Rice. Absolutely drives me nuts. I might have to get those holdered. But yeah, this is a much older label, and that is more often the case with some of the older labels. Basketball, 1988 Fleer Reggie Miller rookie. Reggie Miller was my favorite basketball player growing up. It's a 10, and this card's actually quite tough to get in a 10. Left-right centering looks perfect. Top-bottom centering, I think is great. Is the bottom border wider than the top? I don't think so. I think this is great. And surface is spectacular. Back spotless, a little bit off-centered on the back, but very, very minor. We'll say 60-40 centering on the back. I think this is a worthy 10 today by today's standards. Again, if you sent this in today, PSA is so strict that they might give it a 9, but I think it's very worthy of the 10, and I think it would probably get a 10 if this card were sent in today. From the same set, 1988 Fleer Dennis Rodman rookie. There's actually 4 key rookies in the 88 Fleer set, 4 Hall of Fame rookies. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Reggie Miller, and John Stockton, 4 very important names in basketball history. But the Dennis Rodman here, PSA 10 and centered perfect in both directions as far as my eye can tell. Surface looks very, very good, as is important to me, as I just mentioned. And edges and corners very, very razor sharp. Back centering is definitely off there. Left border wider than the right on the back centering, but not tremendously bad. I think the back centering needs to be 75-25 on the website, PSA's website. Like, that's the minimum. I think this would probably get a 10 today, but it could very well get a 9 because of the back centering. We'll say likely 10. And last card, hockey, 1985 Pwcc Mario Lemieux rookie. It's a PSA mint 9, and the centering is perfect. I mean, 50-50 to my eye in both directions. Surface very, very clean, and corners and edges are sharp enough to shave with. Front looks basically perfect here on the 85 OPC Mario Lemieux. Back, the dark red is susceptible to chipping, and yeah, there's some chipping there at the top. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but definitely some chipping at the top border. Nowhere else really. The corners are all don't really have any chipping, and everything else looks great on the back, but it does have that top chipping, which gives it no chance at a 10. I think it would probably still get a 9 today. It would sort of be like 50-50, 8 or 9 is how I would sort of read that. So there were 3 cards that were clearly would not get the grade today. The Boggs, the Gwen, and the Sanders, all because of centering issues. Those 3 would have no chance at a 10 if they were sent in today. I think every other card was basically, you know, the grade was credible. Although I'm sure if you sent some of them, and some of them would just get a grade lower just because that's the way that the chips lie sometimes. But yeah, I'll say I think it was 12 cards. 9 of the 12 cards were credible grades, and 3 were are overgraded by today's standards. But that's it for now. Appreciate everyone watching. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, let me know if any of this was interesting or surprising, or if you disagreed with any of my takes on any of the cards. But appreciate it as always. Eat your vegetables. See you all again next time. Thanks, everyone.